Yeah. Might as well put it back into the
I hereby call to order the Roseville City Council meeting for Monday, April 6th, 2026. Mr. City Manager, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Strawn?
Here.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Here.
Councilmember Groff?
Here.
Councilmember Bauer?
Here.
Mayor Rowe?
Here. And with us at the dais, by way of introduction, we have our City Attorney, Rachel Tierney, who's on my right, as always, at the end of the dais. Our City Manager, Pat Trudgeon, is on my left, as always, at the other end of the dais. We have a number of other staff and guests who will be introduced as agenda items come up this evening. I would remind folks, if you have a cell phone, to be sure and silence it, or otherwise assure that it doesn't disrupt the meeting this evening. For folks who may be new to council meetings, we do have a copy or extra copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting available for the public on the back table underneath the big clock if you want to follow along with the agenda this evening. We also do have one complete set of all the meeting materials on the back table right next to the agendas in a big 3-ring binder, which we'll all have to share, or folks in the audience will all have to share with each other. That is all the materials that are before the City Council for consideration this evening. I believe that kind of covers some housekeeping things. So with that, presuming that the PA is being heard in the room, sounds like it's a little quiet.
Jesse's working on it.
Got it, okay.
Oh, gotcha now.
Now you got it? Okay. I wasn't hearing myself echo back, so I'm glad to see that somebody was on that. All right. With that, we will ask folks to stand if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first on our agenda this evening is consideration of tonight's agenda, and as always, I'll check first with Mr. Trudgeon. From a staff perspective, are there any changes or corrections to the agenda, Mr. Trudgeon?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose that we, council, consider adding a case to the council agenda tonight to consider making an appointment to the Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission. I'll explain more as that case if you want to add that to the agenda, but we have a vacancy and an opportunity to potentially appoint a member based on the interviews we just did in February. So ask that to be added probably as the last case.
All right, any other changes or corrections?
Otherwise, no.
Okay.
No change.
All right, council recommended changes or corrections to the agenda or items that council members would like removed from the consent agenda for separate consideration this evening. Does not appear to be any. We'll just do a check with members in the audience. If anyone is here for an item in section 10 of the agenda this evening, this is at the end. It's known as our consent agenda. These are normally fairly administrative items that are taken up as a single motion at the end of the meeting or near the end of the meeting with a limited opportunity for input and discussion because they're fairly, hopefully, administrative in nature. However, if somebody is here this evening who wishes to make a comment or ask a question about one of those items in section 10, 10A through G in this case this evening, this would be the opportunity to let us know, and we'll go ahead and move that item earlier in the agenda for our consideration so that you don't have to stay to the very end. Is there anyone here this evening for an item in section 10 of tonight's agenda? All right, does not appear to be the case. With that, we do have the request from staff to amend the agenda to add an item 7E under business items to consider an appointment to the Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission. Does the council wish to make a motion in regard to tonight's agenda?
So moved with that
Second.
addition.
All right.
With addition.
All right, so it's moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Strawn to approve the agenda with an addition of item 7E under business items to consider an appointment to the Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission. Discussion on that motion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We have our agenda for this evening. Next on the agenda is our first opportunity for public comment in the meeting this evening. Usually we do have opportunities for public comment as agenda items come up for those specific items, but we do also at each meeting provide an opportunity for general public comment at the beginning of the meeting. This would be for items that are not under consideration this evening, but may be of either interest to the people in the community or related to city business, but once again, not under consideration this evening. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak under general public comment? All right, feel free to come on up to the table, and we'll just do a quick recap of the rules of the road for public comment. And that is, by council rule, each speaker has a 3-minute time limit, and we ask that you begin your remarks with your name and street or address for the record. We do also ask that you address comments or questions to the City Council. If we can't answer a particular question this evening, we may direct follow-up later on after the meeting. And if you have a name that may not be easy for us to guess at the spelling of, there's an opportunity to write the name down on the clipboard there at the table to help us with that official record and respectfully spell your name correctly. With that, we'll open it up for public comment. Hello and welcome.
Hi, I'm Andy Johnson. I live on County Road C over by Acorn Park. 15th President of the United States. I bet you guys can do it. I'm not worried about the spelling. Not a good one, though, sadly. I would have rather had a different one. Anyway, I read a very interesting article earlier today over lunch on side access to flock camera data, which we've alluded to before, and you were kind enough to send me your policy on it, and I don't think it's adequate. And I think it's very interesting to highlight an example of the risks associated with creating data that doesn't have like sort of privacy inherent in it, or like privacy by design is what we call it at work. Like inherently, you know, if you're going to create data that has risks and have privacy considerations, you can't have things like side access. And so a January flock network audit for Ball State University, a university in Indiana that has a contract with Flock, shows that Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission police performed 38 different Flock searches for reasons that were listed as immigration. So ICE does not have a contract with Flock. Florida, which admittedly is not Minnesota, and you could imagine this being unlikely to happen in Minnesota, but it could, has, I think it's at the instruction of the governor, but I don't know. I'm not going to get super into details on that, but essentially they have a side. The conservation folks are looking into Flock for immigration enforcement because ICE doesn't have the contract, but the conservation folks do. So I wanted to, you know, kind of pop up and bring that to light, which I'm sure you're aware of, but just highlighting that, you know, the side access thing, that wouldn't be covered, right, by your current policy as I understand it, or you guys are welcome to tell me it does somehow prevent Minnesota conservation officers from doing it. But yeah, so kind of getting into that world of we're creating this sort of AI-generated, perpetually scooping up all the information and putting it out there for people to use it for potentially good things, which I'm sure you have a list of things that I probably don't like in general, but surely there's a list of uses you like, but there's a bunch of uses that you purport to be able to claim through handle through policy that you can't actually guarantee you can do. So I would suggest getting rid of the flock cameras. I think they're wildly unpopular. I think it's a dangerous data set to be creating, and we really should not be creating it. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public for general public comment this evening? All right. Thank you again. That means we'll proceed with the agenda then to the next item, which is recognitions and donations. We do have one proclamation this evening in that category, and that is a proclamation for Days of Remembrance. And I'll read the proclamation, and a motion to approve would be in order. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the Holocaust was the state-sponsored systematic persecution and annihilation of European Jewry by Nazi Germany and its collaborators between about 1933 and 1945, and whereas an estimated 6 million Jews, along with millions of Romani, disabled, LGBTQ+, and political dissidents, among other marginalized groups, suffered grievously and were murdered under Nazi tyranny, and whereas the history of the Holocaust offers an opportunity to reflect on the moral responsibilities of individuals, societies, and governments, and whereas the Days of Remembrance have been set aside as a time for all to remember the victims of the Holocaust, as well as to reflect on the need for respect of all people and to strive to overcome intolerance and indifference through learning and remembrance, and whereas the people of the city of Roseville remember the terrible events of the Holocaust, and especially the deaths of more than 1 million children who were victims, and remain vigilant against hatred, persecution, and tyranny. And whereas the people of Roseville are dedicated to the principles of individual freedom in a just society. And whereas Roseville community honors the memory of the victims, survivors, rescuers, and liberators of the Holocaust, Now, therefore, be it resolved, the City of Roseville proclaims the week of April 12th through 19th, 2026, as Days of Remembrance in the City of Roseville.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder, second by Councilmember Strawn, to approve that proclamation. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. That proclamation is approved. That brings us then to our business items. We didn't have any items removed from consent for separate consideration. So under business items this evening, our first item is to consider the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association's request for permit renewal of their water ski slalom course on Lake Owasso. We have our Deputy Police Chief Joe Adams with us this evening to bring this item before us. It's an annual consideration by the council, and so some of the folks involved are well versed in it, but for members of the public for whom this may be the first time, we'll certainly provide some information, and I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Adams for that.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm here to present the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association's request of a permit renewal for the water ski slalom course on Lake Owasso. Just as a reminder, the actual permit is issued by Ramsey County, but with that said, in 1997, the Roseville City Council established a policy allowing for public comment anytime there was a permit involving a Roseville lake. For that reason, the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association submitted a written request seeking approval from the city to apply for a permit through Ramsey County for the slalom course. It'll be in the same location that it's been for over 50 years and has no financial impacts on the city. They did supply a certificate of insurance and its staff's recommendation to approve their request so they can move forward with the permit application through Ramsey County. I'm not sure if someone from the association is here today, but we have invited them.
All right, is anybody from the Safe Boating Association Lake Owasso here this evening? Does not appear to be the case. We will certainly, I'll check first. Are there any questions from members of the council about this particular request? All right. We'll check if there's anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the request by the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association for us to pass along their request for approval with Ramsey County for their permit. Anyone from the public wish to speak to this item this evening? All right, does not appear to be the case. We'll go ahead and close the opportunity for public comment, and I'll check with the council. Is there a motion from the council on this item?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Bauer to authorize, let me get the wording correctly here, approving the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association's request to apply for a permit from the Ramsey County Sheriff for their water ski course for the 26th season. Discussion on the motion is the maker, Councilmember Groff. All right, seconder, Councilmember Bauer. Discussion from the council. All right, hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. That application approval to request the approval is granted. And I did want to note that I think this is an item that there was some potential question as to whether we should continue the process that was put in place in '97, given that we haven't had a lot of public comment over the last several years. So does it make sense from the council's perspective to maybe bring this back for some further discussion on process?
Yes.
Okay. All right, why don't we do that? Mr. Adams.
And Mayor, I apologize if I will. I did have the opportunity to speak with the members that had the Safe Boating Association, and they did say even Ramsey County is providing a multi-year application starting this year, just so they're not going in front of them every year as well. So just for information.
So would this year's permit they're applying for be a 3-year permit?
I didn't hear the length. That might still be up for discussion.
Okay, or
But I do know
multi-year.
this is going to be the first year they're going to have that conversation of, so they
I
don't go
see.
back every single year.
Got it. Okay, so we may do it again next year, but that might be a multi-year approval.
Potentially,
Okay,
yeah.
got it. All right. Thank you. But let's go ahead and plan to try to put that on an upcoming agenda for some further discussion. All right. I believe that does it for this item. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Council.
All right, next on our agenda this evening under business items, we'll receive an update and a presentation on the draft Climate Equity Action Plan for the City of Roseville. And we have Noah Bakken, our sustainability specialist with the City of Roseville here to bring this before the council along with our consultant. And I will leave it to Ms. Bakken to make further introductions. But thank you and welcome, and we'll look forward to the presentation.
Thank you so much, Mayor and council members. I am here today with Ted Redmond, who is the owner of Pale Blue Dot. We've been working with Ted and his partner Colleen on our Climate Equity Action Plan since August of 2025. August of last year, it's gone very fast. I can't believe we're already looking at the draft plan, but we've been doing a lot of great work engaging with community members, gathering data, and we're excited to present the draft plan to you today. So we're looking for any feedback you'd like to provide, and Ted will give a great overview. So I'll send it over to him.
Great. Thank you very much for letting me be here tonight to share the high-level overview of the draft plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So the first thing that I'll point out is that the draft plan itself is in alignment with the strategic plan goals. Goal number 3 was city infrastructure supports sustainability goals of the city, and success indicator was climate action plan is created, completed, and implemented. So here we are at the created stage, at least. So the process that we went through, or are in the midst of going through, is really sort of a 4-phase process. The first was substantial baseline documentation, just sort of digging up a lot of data to try to help provide information to make a decision. The second was through a community engagement process that had sort of a spectrum of opportunity, as we like to talk about it, from surveys through community meetings, art submissions, and then we've also worked in a very detailed process with a community planning team made up of volunteers, as well as a staff planning team. And I'd just like to actually provide a little commentary on that. We do a lot of these kinds of plans. We work with a lot of municipal staff, and I have to say that sometimes it's a mixed bag. Sometimes we get folks that are very resistive. The Roseville staff have been phenomenal. They all have been very embracive of the process and the idea, and have approached creating ideas and exploring ideas without fear. It's exceptional. We've run into very few staff teams that are as exceptional as this. So I just want you to know that I think you already do. You've got great staff. So, and then in addition to the collaboration, then of course we've developed a draft plan, and now it's out for review. So that's what we're here tonight for. So I think the initial studies that we had done, I may have mentioned this before, so we did baseline assessments, vulnerability, GHG inventory, et cetera. At the same time we were doing that, we had the survey out for just general input. All of that information was for us to try to generate as much sort of baseline content, a place to start. And so that content was then summarized in our baseline assessment, and we floated preliminary goals, and that's what we used in our collaborative process with the staff team and the volunteer group. Just a couple highlights from that initial round of engagement. When we asked about concerns around climate change, 32% of respondents were extremely concerned, 24% were very concerned, 9% were moderately, and 8% were slightly, and about 27 were not at all concerned about climate change. Those are somewhat similar to what we see. Our survey was not scientific. It was a voluntary survey, but we can benchmark it against surveys that Yale University does, that it's at county level, and it's not dissimilar to what we might see there. We asked about experience and observations of climate change. And 82% of respondents had noticed signs of climate change. Interestingly enough, 41% of the folks who indicated that they were not at all concerned about climate change also indicated noticing some. And 76% of respondents indicated being personally impacted by one or more aspects of climate change. And again, interestingly enough, about 30%, 29% of those who indicated not at all being concerned also indicated being impacted by one or more. When we asked about the city's role in climate action, 61% were agreed or strongly agreed that the city should prepare for climate impacts. 62% agreed or strongly agreed that the city should work on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And 58% agreed or strongly agreed that the city should be a leader in climate action. As I mentioned, we had a number of ways of participating. In addition to the survey, we also we've had some art opportunities, storytelling opportunities. We're working right now with the Roseville Area High School on some climate storytelling via video. There's also coached climate storytelling, which is underway, and that's being conducted with Change Narrative. And then we've also had open-ended art submissions, which has been very fun, and we are anticipating actually getting some more. In addition to that, we've also had a storytelling process that's still open called the Roseville Diary 2040. And what this is about is collective visioning, so that in addition to sort of numbers, facts, and figures, we also have a sense of what a shared community vision of our future might look like. And we've taken that content to then create a vignette, a little sort of diary of the future for each one of the sections to sort of share a collective potential vision of what a future climate resilient Roseville will look and feel like. So I mentioned that we did do a climate vulnerability assessment. Just as an interesting side note, 25 of the 26 hottest global years on record have been since the year 2000. That includes the 2025, which is number 2. And in fact, the hottest of all have been the last 12 years. In the vulnerability assessment, we looked at climate projections through mid-century and end of century, and associated that with our population and our infrastructure, and summarized that although we don't want to ignore any risk, nor do we want to ignore any vulnerable population, are some of our primary risks that we think we should pay attention to are extreme heat and weather, air quality impacts, food insecurity, infrastructure, power failure considerations, and flooding, particularly flash flooding, having flooding occur where we're not used to it because of very heavy precipitation falling on dry ground. We also conducted a greenhouse gas inventory assessment, community-wide and for municipal operations. Community-wide, our 2024 emissions were 408,000 metric tons. The two biggest sectors are transportation, so fuels used for moving around, and then the natural gas sector, so fuels used to heat. The third largest would be electricity, and electricity is on a positive downward trend due to state legislation. So the plan goals outline an interim goal and a long-term goal. The interim goal takes us through 2036, and that's to achieve a 54% reduction in community-wide greenhouse gas emissions by 2036. And the long-term goal is to achieve net zero by 2050. That long-term goal is in alignment with the state of Minnesota's long-term goal, as well as Met Council and Ramsey County. So our plans are in alignment. The plan framework itself has 6 technical sectors. These sectors are organized and aligned with the state of Minnesota plans. Although the specific goals and the specific actions differ from the state's plan, the difference really comes down to the idea of a state plan versus a municipal plan. But they do align in spirit and structure. So the plan component, each of those sectors then has a series of strategies, and those are directional statements that paint a vision of what we want to accomplish within the next 10 years. Each one of those strategies then is backed up with a description of some of the equity considerations or highlights around equity impacts or potentials. We also then highlight the overall potential impact of that strategy, whether it's emissions reduction or resilience. And then each strategy is backed up with a menu of detailed actions. And so those are intended to be sort of steps that we can take to reach that goal and support that goal. And each strategy then we offer up some potential metrics for how we might achieve, measure our success as implementation goes along. So with that, I'll just kind of maybe take a highlight of each of the sectors and the goals related to those sectors. So in the clean transportation sector, we're looking at a goal of a 57% reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions. And that's achieved through 3 primary approaches. The first is a reduction in vehicle miles traveled, so just simply using vehicles less, fewer road miles. The second is increasing our public transit utilization. And then the third is increasing our zero emission vehicle use, electric vehicles or others. In our clean energy and efficient buildings sector, we're looking at a goal of reducing our emissions 54% through 2036. And there are 4 primary approaches to doing that. The first is reducing overall community-wide electric use through energy efficiency. The second is reducing overall natural gas use, and that can be achieved both through energy efficiency as well as the third, which is increasing fuel switching, so increasing the use of electric heating systems or non-fossil fuel-based heating systems. And then the last strategy is increasing renewable electricity use. In our resilient communities sector, we've got a 10% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions targeted for our wastewater sector, and a 33% reduction in emissions associated with our solid waste emissions. The solid waste emission reduction comes through 2 primary approaches. The first is overall, just reduction overall of waste generation, so moving closer and closer towards a zero waste community, just reducing less. And then secondly, increasing the diversion of organics out of our solid waste stream into organics collection. In our Healthy Lives section, we've got 3 primary goals. The first is to continue to and enhance supporting community health amid climate change. The second is increasing production and access to local food. And the third is reducing hunger and food waste within the community. In the Climate Smart and Natural Lands section, we've got 3 primary goals. The first is to increase our total tree canopy coverage within the community. The second is to decrease our lawn or manicured lawn coverage, swapping that out for native grasses, wildflowers, garden spaces. Those have both pollinator opportunities as well as stormwater management value. And then the third is decreasing our impervious surfaces, particularly our dark impervious surfaces, which can tag team with helping to manage stormwater even better, and also decreasing micro heat island considerations.
Before you leave the slide, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding. So by 2036, we're talking about going from 28.6% tree canopy to 30.3%, which some might look at that and say that's not a very big change. And so can we talk a little bit more, in all these categories, it doesn't seem like a very big change. Can we talk about kind of what the impact is and what it really looks like to do some of those changes?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point and a good question. When it comes to ground cover, I often encourage us to think about it not in terms of overall numbers. These are shares of our total community coverage, but instead look at it as a percentage change from our base. So for the tree canopy, that's roughly a 10% increase, which is relatively significant if you think about we're increasing from a base. So although it's 3%, give or take, or 2% in actual land coverage, that's a fair increase over our base. We have outlined roughly how many trees community-wide planted every year that translates into, and I'm sorry, I do not have that number in my brain.
That's okay.
But it's not an unsubstantial number.
Sure.
We're talking in the thousands of trees per year to achieve that.
Yeah.
And
you
as
can find-
we communicate that, I think it may make sense to look at
Yeah.
how we talk about that with people too, because we certainly want people to understand what the impact is, and that 10% change or whatever in tree canopy, I think stands out a little bit more than the 2-point-something%
That's
incremental change.
That's a great point, and I've often struggled with which numbers to use, and I think for this we could explore what if we changed it so that we are talking about a change over the base. We default to this because it's a number that the city can easily look at to know have we achieved it, because once
Right.
you do the survey.
And sometimes you can express both, and it's just kind of
Yes.
how you emphasize each one. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
All right, thank you.
And I'll also continue on, both for the lawn swapping and for the dark impervious surfaces, we also have identified sort of how many acres per year does that relate to. And again, I wish I should have had those numbers in my head, but I don't.
Yeah.
All
And,
right,
and the
we know
ground,
where to find them.
yeah, and the ground cover study is specifically the document that you'd be looking for that does lay out all of that in great detail as far as number of trees, acres, et cetera.
And these are community-wide numbers, not just city
Correct.
properties?
Exactly.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, and then in the last sector, which is clean economy, we've got two primary goals. The first is to grow the equitable climate workforce and entrepreneurship. Basically, what that's saying is, hey, some of these changes offer opportunities for jobs. Why not try to harvest those here for Roseville community members, for folks that are interested in starting a business or expanding a business in Roseville? What can we do to help support that? And then the second is to help local businesses in building climate resilience. What can we do to just help support that our local businesses, particularly small businesses that may have less resources, are aware of some of the things that they should be thinking of relative to their own resilience? So, oops, I'm sorry, I went the wrong direction. Those sectors then, we've added up their cumulative impacts. For GHG emissions here, we illustrate the reductions. They do add up to a little over 54% emission reduction through 2036. You can see that breakdown. The white space is reductions that are either already achieved or anticipated through what we call business as usual impacts. So for instance, the state law around the grid, that will give us some benefit that we'll just benefit from. So we've included those sorts of changes. And then you can see breakdown by sector for transportation, buildings and energy, and the solid waste and wastewater sectors. We've also illustrated some of the potential economic savings. I say some because there are certainly other economic costs and savings that are out there, but the ones that we illustrate are ones that we've got good data on, and some studies that we can point to that give us some founding for being able to project costs and savings. There are things like in the transportation sector, if we switch to electric vehicles, for instance, when I go buy an electric vehicle, right now there is a cost difference. AAA, Kelley Blue Book both track what the average cost difference is, so we can know roughly what's the cumulative cost impact of that. And also, there's good studies that illustrate that if you own an EV, that you will save operational dollars. And so we can apply that to anticipate how much one might save by making that switch. So these numbers are cumulative, and what I mean by that is that to reach those goals that we've talked about through 2036, we've kind of drawn a straight line, which we know is not accurate, but we don't know any better, that we're going to achieve that goal sort of Steven each year, moving towards that goal. And that if I, for instance, make energy efficiency upgrades in my home year one, once I invest in insulation or what have you to decrease my energy consumption, I'm assuming that you don't undo your upgrades, and therefore you can benefit from that each year. So now that person is saving 10 years, whereas the latecomer that comes the last year is only saving them 1 year. So these numbers reflect the cumulative cost and savings impact. And it's intended just as good faith to illustrate that, yes, there are some costs, but there's great indication that climate action ultimately helps us create communities that are more livable, and the strategies in a plan like this can help us save money as well, even with investment. Lastly, in the plan, we have a section that is create your own climate plan. And the intention here is that one of the number one questions that residents will ask about is, what can I do? This is a great, I support the plan, it's great, but I see these things are actions that talk about what the city can do, what can I do? And so what we've done is taken the goals and the actions and sort of translated them into a menu of things that a business owner or a homeowner or a household or an individual, things that they can do, and organized it for each one of the sectors. So we're just trying to give folks a starting point for participating in plan implementation. And so lastly, I just want to point out sort of our next steps. We have a community input session scheduled for May 4th. It's from 5:30 to 8 at the Ramsey County Environmental Center. And we hope to have lots of people show up. And we have an online review opportunity where folks can view the draft plan and also provide input. We are asking questions that are trying to be measurable and also open-ended. So folks can share whatever input they want to share with us. And then we anticipate bringing back the final draft. We'll take all that input into consideration, collaborate with staff to refine the plan based on input, and then we'll bring the final draft back to the PWET on June 23, and then we anticipate bringing it back to the council in July. So,
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation and for all the work that's been going on for a while on this. We'll start with questions from the council. Are there questions from the city council for the staff or consultant? Councilmember Strong.
Not a question so much as a comment. If you haven't read the book Life After Cars, or City Limits, Infrastructure, Inequality, and the Futures of America's Highways, which Noel's probably read both of them, they really talk about the inequality when we only look at a car-driven society, and we have this opportunity in this this climate plan to look at a plan kind of counter to that, to take a chance to maybe talk about what walking, biking, EV charging stations, community gardens, and then just attracting green businesses to Roseville can mean. And so I'm excited I think this is just a starting point, and I think there's so many things, so many places we can go with it. And I've tried to kind of be a champion along the way. And so I just nerding out and reading some of these books. But again, one's in Life After Cars, and it's very anti-car. You have to kind of take it with your own point of view. But the person who wrote its last name happens to be Goodyear, and they are related to the people who made the tires. And they talk about how much pollution there is from tires alone, and then just how that impacts things. And then the city limits piece is one that I got from that same reading. So I just say that really I look forward to what we can do with this, because I think since I've been on council, it's been one of the main things that people have asked us to take a broader stance, to take a bigger chance on. And many of the things were listed in the climate plans or possibilities, bike buses and things, are addressed in these two books I mentioned.
I've written them both down. I have not actually read those, but I would recommend Curbing Traffic is another great one that is a good bike-focused book.
Other questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Bauer.
Yeah, I have a question about the presentation. On there you put percentages. We can take like the reduction in electricity, for example, the goal that you have, I think you had 5% reduction. How would you factor in, I think for 2050, the growth of businesses? So say if we increase like our commercial business here or industrial, we get some, a tenant or business that wants to come to Roseville. Obviously that will grow, but maybe like per individual business reduction. But in your presentation or in your actual document, are you taking these kinds of things into account when we set these goals? I'm always concerned about what it is that we measure, because you end up shooting for that target.
That's a great question. Currently, the goals are absolutes as opposed to per capita. We tend to encourage thinking of them in terms of absolutes because seeking to reduce community-wide emissions, populations may change and or grow, change. Same thing with business and so forth. In order to achieve the emission reduction, if we do it on a per capita basis, we may reduce it per capita, but still increase our overall emissions. So for that reason, the plan currently focuses on absolute percentage goals. And I will say that out of all the energy, the electricity reduction goal, you'll see 5% is relatively modest. It does try to anticipate a few things. We expect more things to be electrified, transportation for one. We do have in our calculation tool some projections for what that might be into the future. We have some projections for what an EV might need for charging in the next 10 years. So we do account for some of that. But that goal is intended primarily to just help us make sure that we're focusing on using our electricity more effectively and efficiently. So that we have more space. Renewables will go further if we are using our electricity more efficiently. But the percentage is relatively modest. And that's a recognition that electricity is going to continue to be more crucial and important for us.
I would add two additional points to that too. Just one, the state commercial building code has been tightened as well. So any large new construction will have to be more efficient. And the state is also requiring any building over 50,000 square feet will have to start benchmarking, I believe starting this year, So those are another couple things. And we addressed, there is a goal, and I forget which category it's actually in, but recommending starting a voluntary benchmarking program, which we did kind of dip our toes into several years back, but kind of the pandemic and things really cut that short. But we'll probably revisit that as well. But that's a great question, considering what we may consider for people coming in and growing the city.
Yeah, and if I can follow up on
Yeah.
that. Sure. You brought up EV. That's a great example. The infrastructure necessary, right, for charging and whatnot is quite large. I know, that's been come up to our variance board a couple times, right, because of the mandates and causing possibly businesses not to choose Roseville because of that in the infrastructure. Building that has a real cost to this. I'm curious to know if those costs are actually, really taking into account. And similarly, in your surveys, when you put those out, have you any idea how willing people are or residents are for increasing property taxes to implement these changes? I'd be curious to know if it's, $5 or $500 or like what is the appetite for that?
That's
Do
a,
you have any-
you can go ahead first. I've got a couple of thoughts.
We didn't explicitly ask on the survey the question around willingness to have increased taxes, so unfortunately I can't answer that question.
That'd be a great one to ask, right? Because people always like things for free, right? But when they're actually required to think like this is actually going to cost you, what is your answer now?
Yeah.
I think that'd be very beneficial.
Yeah, we do have, it's not the specific question that you asked, but we did ask one question around, when it came to renewable electricity, for instance, I'd be willing to pay X dollars more, X to Y dollars more for renewable electricity. That question was in there. I can't remember the percentage. But we didn't ask the overall tax question. On EV, there is cost associated with EV. It depends on whether you're installing a level 2 charger or a level 3 fast charger. Level 3s are quite a bit more expensive currently. Level 2s can be anywhere between $2,000 and $6,000 depending on all sorts of things. The panel that you're connecting it with and so forth. When it comes to, we're lucky that Xcel Energy, which covers us here, does have a good charger program where actually they offer up for customers zero upfront cost, and then they just basically add I don't want to put out a dollar value, but it's a relatively modest monthly charge. They own the charger, and then the account owner can use that electricity to charge their vehicle. So there are some options for EV installation to reduce costs.
Yes, on the residential side, not so much on the
Yeah.
commercial
Not
side.
so
On
much on
commercial,
commercial, no.
yeah,
Which
there's
is where we're
also
getting pushback.
there are installers who will do something similar, where a third party will install a charger and own it, and then they charge electric fee plus whatever percentage so that they can recoup their costs. So there are organizations that will do that also.
Thank you.
Good other questions or comments? Councilmember Groff?
Thanks for the presentation, very informative. I appreciate all the information. I especially like the action items that you had because people do want to know what they can do, as you said. They start to think of their own property. Maybe they could get rid of that impervious driveway and put in something else. What are the costs for that? Maybe a rain garden would help with water. And we do deal with water here quite often. If climate change as we know it will continue, and we have more water events that are going to be flooding, we've been dealing with that ever since I've been on the council. I would guess since the mayor's been on the council too. So those were important things for me to hear about. On the EV charging, that's interesting because for my day job, I'm a real estate agent, and I'm actually getting a lot of questions from condo owners and from renters on which buildings actually have EV charging, or can they put them in? What's the process? And all those sorts of things. So there's a little bit of a learning curve we have with the HOAs and
Yep.
with those sorts of things that I'm just trying to get up to speed on myself.
We should chat about that because I'm also working with a group of U of M students on exactly that, on how HOAs can incorporate different sustainability measures, and we're finding it's very complicated.
Yeah, it is very complicated, and I think it's something the Board of Realtors should deal with too and probably
Yes.
put out information on.
Sorry to interrupt. Keep.
No, that's fine. I just think it's just something that's come up in my life just in the last couple of weeks, but I think it's an important issue to discuss. So thanks. That's all.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. There's a lot of detail in this report, and it took a while to go through it because I wanted to really read about it. And actually, one of my questions I think you alluded to was the reduction in the electric use, because I was thinking with the EV use, that would go up versus down. So thank you for addressing that. Because that one is thinking, well, how does that work, right? If we really are going that direction, you'd almost think you'd want that to break it down into, how that electricity is being produced versus how it's being used as well. The other piece that I saw that seemed to be missing from the presentation, of course, this is because of my background, is the cost to the city from the budget perspective to do all these things. Because I would think from, as you know, and it alludes back to the taxpayers and the taxes, and of course, us doing the budget every year, it would be very helpful to understand some of these different things. I see you have the savings, but it would also be good to see what the costs are for the cities. And I know that some of these costs are borne by the residents in their individual homes, but I think some of this is also then something that would affect property taxes and the budget. And so it would be very helpful to maybe have some more detail around that, to understand. As you know, as we are going through this, sometimes you have to prioritize different things, and having the cost, I think, would be helpful to understand how that could fit in with the rest of the budget.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway, and I think it's also a matter of which of these costs are going to be going towards CIP-related items versus, just kind of annual one-off costs as well, operational staff costs. And we address some of that, like, very much on a high level in some of the goals as far as maintaining staffing levels and things like that. But I think there are opportunities to be more concrete with that, and I think especially residents would appreciate trying to be more upfront with that as best we can as well. So.
And another aspect about how the plan suggests approaching that also is in the implementation section. We have just a handful of sort of suggestions on how the city might organize itself for implementation. And one of the suggestions is having a sort of a staff team that organizes implementation, and talking about, okay, which actions are we going to be implementing next year? They can do that if they do that sort of in line with the normal conversations that they have for next year's budgeting requests. They can take advantage of understanding what are we going to be doing next year, and therefore which actions we can easily do that because we're already doing something similar. And also think about, okay, so these are the actions we're implementing next year. Who's available? Who's not available? Do we need, budget for X, Y, and Z? And then incorporate that into the budgeting process is our suggestion. So each year you could come forth with a detailed request related to the actions that are going to be started up or continued the following year.
And that might be the easiest way to do it, just because especially with building upgrades and as we're seeing with the maintenance facility project as well, things kind of evolve over time, and depending on, the electrical setup and construction needs and things like that, budgets can really change. But I think even adding something like we expect adding renewable energy would add around X percentage of additional costs to a project might be helpful to kind of ballpark some of these things.
Yep, that high level. Yep, thank you.
I did want to sort of just tie into that. I think it may make sense as we look, one of the things we do is we look out 20 years in our capital planning. Maybe we need to start implementing some sustainability aspect to that, either just incorporating it into, the numbers that we already take into account, or sort of layering it in with some of the net pluses and minuses, depending on how that can work, because on the capital planning side of things, it's always just essentially minuses because it's always costs. So we have to think about some of the savings in the long term that we might be realizing with some of those investments as well. And that was one of the things that I think was brought up earlier is not just the upfront costs sometimes, but in the long term, as we looked at with the electric fire engine when we purchased that, ultimately, we're coming out ahead because it's a longer lasting vehicle. There's lower costs for diesel fuel and oil and maintenance and all that sort of thing. So I think that was an important lesson for us in how to consider that.
Absolutely.
But I think we should think about that as part of our strategic planning that we're doing anyway, and implementing that into the rest of our decision making, I think it does make sense to look at how we want to capture sustainability in our both our annual budgeting process of our sort of operating costs, but then also those long range capital planning, so that we can see how that measures out in terms of, well, yes, there might be a little more upfront cost, but the savings on the operating side actually pays for it or something like that. I think those kinds of things, we just have to figure out how we can present that information both for decision makers, but also for the ultimate decision makers, the residents of Roseville. I would also note that I think, we have been doing city community surveys, and perhaps questions we can talk about if we want to add some questions about cost tolerance for sustainability and things like that. We can look at if there's some questions we don't need to keep asking anymore, and maybe there's some we can add in just to try to keep it manageable for the residents who take those calls. But I think that's something we should definitely add to the conversation as we get to the planning for our next community survey. And then just finally on a sort of a technical matter, especially related to electrical consumption and reducing that, there was talk about converting natural gas heating to electric. I'm assuming we're not talking about like electric heating elements and blowing air across electric heating elements, because that is extremely costly way to generate heat. I'm imagining that we're talking about things like geothermal and things like that. You're using electricity to run a heat pump, but take advantage of the source of the heat or the cooling from the earth or something like that.
Yep, exactly. So like a geothermal or an air source heat pump is much more efficient because it's just transferring heat from place to place rather than generating heat like a gas furnace is. And so as time goes on and we're learning more and more about what natural gas and kind of health implications of natural gas in a home are, it's becoming more and more clear that that's kind of the direction we should be looking, and especially from an energy security standpoint as well. Natural gas has to be drilled, but solar and wind is always freely available. So, yes.
I can remember years ago how it was like, well, if you're using electricity for even your oven or stove in your house, well, that's all generated with coal. That's terrible for emissions. It's better to use natural gas. Well, I think things are evolving.
Yep, and unfortunately, natural gas is not as inexpensive as it used to be either. So we're seeing
certainly.
a lot of changes in the last 10 years, and in the next 5-10 years as well. It'll be very, very interesting.
Yeah, well, and certainly natural gas used to be one of the cleaner sources of energy, and now everything else is changing. So now natural gas doesn't look as favorable in that regard. Right, Councilmember Strawn.
I just had a couple things. I think if you can see from the waiting line at Target for the charging stations that there is a demand and that we are probably not meeting it. And I echo what Councilmember Groff mentioned about the interest in properties with chargers. It's something that I hear quite frequently. They can't find a place where they can, and that is part of that inequality, that renters don't have access to being able to use that, except for in few places where they're really committed to it or they're newer. And then I think we have to, again, look at the cost over the long term, because environmental cleanup of a property 20 years down the road for things that we're doing cheaply now is still going to have the same total cost at the end, but we should just not do it at the beginning. And when we talk about cost tolerance on surveys, I'd really want to make sure we're surveying the people who are 20 years down the road as residents. I know it's great, but most likely the people who answer the phones and take those surveys are more likely to be some of our more seasoned people who have hair the color of mine. I think we really need to make sure that we're reaching out specifically to people who they and their families and their children and their children's children have a long future, and we need to make sure we're looking at a forward thinking on that. And then just along those same lines, I would hope that we would have a commitment to staying away from large consumers of water and electricity, like certain types of companies that might want to come in and for a short time utilize our resources, that we keep that 20-year in mind as we say, yes, we want you to be a user in our city, rather than just someone who comes in and uses and abuses our resources and then moves on to something else. And that could be data center today. It could be something we haven't even thought of for 5 years from now. So,
Absolutely.
I wanted to add Two additional things. I'll just make an observation that some of the people that I've encountered in Roseville are the most interested in sustainability and being concerned about climate change are some of our most seasoned residents. And so
Yes.
we may want to be careful about how we classify people. But saying that, I think one of the other things we can acknowledge through this process is that a lot of times new technologies do start at higher cost, and then over time, as they're implemented, as efficiencies are gained and knowledge is gained through manufacturing processes and all those sorts of things, costs come down. I mean, I think the cost of some of the original VCRs that people were buying in the 70s is probably as much as people were paying for cars at that time. So it just kind of puts it in perspective. So other comments or questions from the council? All right. I do want to provide an opportunity for public comment. I imagine we have some folks here who may be interested in this topic. I do want to note once again the next steps that are on the screen, which is certainly we're talking. I hope they're on the screen.
Yeah.
Which is this community input session. Certainly on May 4th is a key opportunity for input. But once again, I think the plan is already available on the website.
Correct, yes,
So
we have
you
the
can
whole
look at it
draft.
now and provide feedback already. But through certainly June 6th of this year, it's available. And so we don't have to cover every thought that everybody has this evening, but I do want to provide, as always, an opportunity for public comment. So maybe if Ms. Bakken and Mr. Redmond, if you can take a seat for just a moment, and we'll free up some opportunity for people to speak at the microphone. Right, and see what will happen now is that we may not have anybody that wishes to.
Don't worry, I'm here.
No,
I'm
Andy's
not
here.
participatory if I don't participate.
Right, and just once again, for folks who may not have been here at the beginning of the meeting, we do have, by council rule, a 3-minute time limit per speaker. We do ask that you state your name and your street or address for the record at the beginning of your comments and address comments or questions to the council. If we have questions, we'll accumulate those and note those and attempt to answer those at the end of the comment period if we can, otherwise follow up with people. With that, hello and welcome.
Hello, I am still Andy Johnson. I still live on County Road C over by Acorn Park. I went to the presentation open house, I guess maybe it was, some weeks ago, and they had some nice food, and I saw the big posters. It was a cool presentation. It's sweet that the city is doing this. I can't be positive, though. I have to complain. Otherwise, why would I be here? So just, on the positive side, I do really like that. I think the sort of getting rid of lawns piece I think is sweet. I've ripped up a bunch of my lawn, and I've talked to my neighbors. And one thing I think the city could do is make it more clear what you can and can't do, and then change your rules to make it more can do, kind of just universally. And I'm telling people I've been doing this for 8 years, and so far no one's come to tell me no. So here's your evidence. But something from you guys, I don't know, a website, just anything to encourage people to rip up all their grass would be sweet. I don't have my Kill Your Lawn shirt on, but I do have some great Kill Your Lawn attire. And sort of just general encouragement. In that vein, I hate that go around, look at my yard and give me a little yellow sticky thing telling me that I need to clean something up. It's happened once in 8 years, but the notion that people are out looking at my yard annoys me, and it feels like an HOA, and I live in a city, not an HOA. So that would be one tip in that space is those people could do anything else, and it would probably be a better use of time, and my neighbors could talk to me or call you guys if there's a problem. We talk. They would let you know if they're mad about it. And then on the Excel front, I don't know. You probably can't do anything. There's a meeting at the library in a couple weeks or maybe a month that I'm going to go to, but our relationship to the natural monopoly that makes our power is insane, and them being profitable and owning stadiums, particularly you can open the Manhew book to chapter 9 and they'll tell you about natural monopolies, and them being a for-profit's absurd. There's some regulatory framework, but I guess I would love for them to do more green energy, and I know the state is leaning on them. I wonder if the cities can lean on them. You have this sort of grouping of cities. Maybe there's something to be done there, maybe not. Curious about it. On the business front that Rep. Bauer was pointing out, Julie, you said it basically, but I agree, right? We should think really, really hard about the businesses that start in Roseville and whether or not we want them, be it private equity or a resource-heavy using thing. Why do we want that? We don't want that. And then on the sort of cost front, I think a larger reimagining of the whole budget and thinking about what resources we could shift to these sorts of efforts from other efforts, right? Sort of a budget is a moral document and about your priorities. I think we could probably find some money, move over there. And then my personal hobby horse is I think we spend way too much money on police. 28% is absurd. Crime rates have been going down. I feel like we could find money there, flock cameras or other sources of income there to shift from that budget to this sort of sustainability, forward-looking 2040 climate sort of intervention look at things. And those are my notes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak to this draft plan this evening? All right. Well, thank you for the comments, and we'll certainly take that as well as the input from these other opportunities into account in the process. And I think other than, once again, noting these next steps, I don't know that there's any other action required of the council this evening other than to thank you for the work that's been underway and probably to add to the adulation that was given to staff earlier in the presentation. We probably can't go without noting all of the help that we've had from volunteers and interested parties in the community through this whole process. And I'm imagining part of the incorporation of additional public input will be running some of those potential changes past those folks that have been participating in that manner as well.
Yep, absolutely. And just an apology to the council that the final meeting is on a Monday night. So it was getting tougher and tougher to find open space and open time for everybody. But we're hoping we can get a lot of people out for our final community meeting. And we're very pleased with the feedback we've gotten and how we've been able to really wrap it in with the plan. And hearing from the council has been very illustrative and helpful too as we kind of move into the final phases as well, to know that we're considering your priorities as well, because that's important to us as well.
All right. Well, we have a role, and we know when that role is important to happen. So if it happens to be on a Monday night, we can deal with it.
Well, thank you very much.
And maybe
Appreciate it.
maybe it's better that we aren't there. You never know. All right.
You're always welcome. Well, we
Thank you
appreciate
again.
the time and your feedback, so thank you very much.
All right. With that, then, we will move to our next business item, which is item 7C. This is to consider awarding a contract for some of the general park improvements related to improvements planned at Rosebrook Park this year. And I'll turn it over to Matt Johnson, our Park and Rec Director, who's frantically looking for his PowerPoint and is ready to go with his presentation.
Got to get centered up for you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you.
Excellent transition.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a project that I've talked to you many times about, so I will be very light on background and try to just focus on the decision items for the evening. And again, this is really awarding our last outstanding bid package related to the Rosebrook Park improvements. Just as a quick refresher, the improvements that we are planning to do this summer in Rosebrook is add additional parking south of the building, convert the wading pool to a splash pad, which will be a fully recirculating splash pad, a brand new playground just east of there, adding some benches, tables, and otherwise connecting resources, as well as some landscaping and some trees to the area. This is a rendering of the splash pad that was provided through our community input session. We had 4 meetings with the neighborhood, as well as some on-site engagement at Discovery Parks, and this is what the new playground will look like as well. Not pictured, but as one of our community members mentioned, there will be shade structures provided in the island as well. We do recognize the importance of that. As how we are funding this project, we have about $830,000 that are tied to various CIP items that have been programmed into the budget for many years on the site that sort of all came together over this 2-year period. When we had talked to the council previously, we had agreed to $267,000 from the Park Dedication Fund, and that was largely for the replacement of the parking lot, and largely coming from developments that had occurred within a half mile of that space. Seemed to make a lot of sense. We did also receive a $213,000 grant from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for the Community Resilience Grant, and that went directly towards making the splash pad a recirculating system so that water is not just poured into our storm drain. It did allow us to add shade structures to the design as well as plant additional trees on the site. So with all that together, what we've been talking about is a $1.3 million project. We did break this up into several proposal packages, as we do with most projects, to make sure that we can get high-performing vendors in the various areas of excellence. And the project that we're discussing today, the portion of it is the general site work. So this is site work, parking lot, landscaping. Essentially, all of the other vendors are on board and have come in actually at or below what we were anticipating they would. We did issue a request for proposal through blind bid on February 11th, and we closed it on March 6th. If you're paying attention to global events, wasn't a great time to have bids come in with what was going on in Iran and other areas. But we did have enough consistency where we have a pretty high degree of confidence that this price, that new look, which was our low bid for $677,000, is essentially what the market bears. We have 4 bids roughly within that ballpark. We did receive 10 total proposals, so we feel pretty confident that that's what the market bears. As we look at our total project package, that bid did come in about $131,000 above what we had originally anticipated. I say that with a caveat because when we had prepared this project, we had talked about the use of expanded park dedication funds and really trying to identify some opportunities to do things that were beyond the scope of the project. Candidly, I think I had really encouraged staff as well as our consultants to really look for opportunities to make this a special project. So we did implement a number of things that came from community members in the engagement process that led to a bit of scope creep, specifically increasing the volume of water that could flow to the splash pad because they wanted 2 of certain sprayers that we had to upsize to do, adding some shade structure, as well as some of the connectivity between the sites. Additionally, as I mentioned, we do think that the bids came in higher than anticipated related to what was going on globally as well, and that created some volatility in the market. Ultimately, oops, I jumped ahead here, I'm sorry. Ultimately, when those bids did come in, we did go through a phase of value engineering where staff looked at the total package and said, is there things we could cut out? Is there an opportunity to downsize this budget a little bit? Ultimately, what we really came to is that anything that would meaningfully move the needle would greatly undermine the project. One example of an area that we looked at was the pathway lighting. If we were to cut that out, that would save $62,000, but that was something that was really added when we met with the neighbors. They said, it's great that you're here talking to us. We love to walk in this park. We now walk later into the year, and that lighting's really important to us. So we did go through that exercise and ultimately felt like the scope of the project was still very sound. And again, it does fit in the spirit of utilizing park dedication funds and some reserves, as I'll propose. So ultimately, what we are proposing to offset that additional $131,000 is a combination of roughly half park dedication funds. Again, the Park Dedication Fund currently has a balance of around $2 million, with $267,000 currently committed to this project. So that would increase that number to $332,000. And then about half utilizing Parks and Recreation Fund reserves. As was shared a few meetings ago, we are currently above our reserve limit with the Parks and Recreation Fund. We are about $734,000 above the low target, meaning that even if the City Council were to determine that they wanted to transfer some into the general fund, as was discussed a few weeks ago, the fund could still handle utilizing reserves in this way. To try to sort of preempt the question of why don't we just use all park dedication funds, certainly a valid option. From a staff side, we really do like to preserve those park dedication funds because they really are a great opportunity when you have a good project to make it great, or when land becomes available, they can be a great tool for acquiring land. And so as a staff member, we're always trying to preserve those funds as we can. But of course, that's food for conversation. My last slide, we always feel good when this slide when a slide from over a year ago is still on schedule. This was the schedule because I know you all get questions about this. And we are right on track. We intend to begin construction, assuming approval tonight, within about a month. And we do anticipate this will be completed this summer. And I won't say this on the record, but I'm cautiously optimistic we may even get a little bit of splash pad season this year, but not ready to sign my name to that document just yet. So with that, I am requesting 2 actions tonight. The first is a motion to approve New Look Contracting. As I mentioned, we did receive 10 competitive bids. The pricing was consistent across contractors, and so we do feel very confident in that price and their ability to deliver a high-quality product, as well as guidance related to how you would like to fund that additional $131,000. And then what I did not mention verbally but was in the packet, contingency the plan would be to take that out of park dedication if it is needed. We have firm pricing on everything except for this potential bid package. If there's contingency, it would only be related to that. So with that, I made every effort to be as quick as possible. You all know that's not my strong suit, but I will open it up for any questions that you may have.
All right, questions from the council. Councilmember Schroeder.
Thank you for this. I tell you, there's so much excitement about that splash pad. That was one fun thing to have the community, when we started talking about it, the support around that. So this is one of the kind of projects that it feels really good that we're working on. With that 131, I'd actually encourage you to use as much park dedication, because that's such a restricted area and what you can actually use it for, that you can use it for this.
Right.
Whereas your reserves is more, you can use that for just about anything. So in a way, if you're going to have some extra money, I'd almost think it makes more sense that you'd keep it in your operating reserve and use this very restricted money first. That way you still have it there, but now you have more flexibility than if you have something else you need it for.
Sure.
So that would be my thought on it.
All right, other questions or comments? Councilmember Bauer?
Yeah, I would second using the more restricted accounts as well. And then I had a follow-up question too, which was, what is the lifespan of the splash pad that we're thinking, like replacement timeline? Or are we thinking 20 years?
Full replacement would be minimally 20 years. I
20
would
years
anticipate
still?
we'll be beyond that. There are, because it is a recirculating system, there are filters and that sort of thing that will require, but on the whole, at least a 20-year, and we're hearing people go longer than that.
Thank you.
All right, other questions for the council? Councilmember Graff?
On the funding, what other projects do we have coming down the road here in the next year or two?
Well, that's a big loaded question. We do have a number. The one that, speaking to park dedication, we are currently doing engagement with the Autumn Grove Park neighborhood, and part of the conversation with that is moving a playground, which would be, again, not a astronomical cost. We're not proposing, we won't come back and say we want to use $1 million, but it may be $100,000 or somewhere thereabouts. That neighborhood is anxious to develop the south parcel, but that's not in the scope of our work right now. We are working through the nature playground, but that seems to be funded outside of city dollars right now. But as I mentioned, really we've got, I think over the next 2 years, about $2 million of CIP projects, and these can be a great asset, like we did here, to say, we've got 600,000, we can do a really good project. Let's make it great for another 200. But we don't have any big, giant, we need to hold the funds for this coming down the line.
Thanks. That's what I wanted to know.
All right, other questions? My observation on the funding side of it, I think, is that I think I would be a little more comfortable if we don't take all the funds from park dedication, if that's the council's direction. That may make this moot. But as I understand our fund reserve policy, which I appreciate was in the packet for our refreshing, the phrase about funds in excess of those needed for capital needs primarily applies to funds where capital is sort of mixed in with operating in the same fund. And so the Park and Recreation Fund is very much an operating fund from that perspective. And so I would be a little concerned about taking capital funding from that, I think for some of the reasons that have been already mentioned. If we did want to look for another source, we could look at potentially our cash carry forward fund, which we already have funds in from prior years, much of which has come from Parks and Recreation operating surpluses or operating in excess of our target range for our reserves. So that might be a possibility depending on where the council wants to go. That affects our conversation about how we use those funds and potentially how much we sweep from Parks and Recreation this year as well, based on other needs. But that would be just my comment on that. It would be, from strictly a policy perspective, a little more appropriate to look at the cash carry forward fund as opposed to the operating reserves of the Park and Recreation Fund, from my perspective. But I'm open to where the council wants to go on that. Councilmember Bauer.
Some clarification on that, because I may have this wrong, but I thought we were going to try to use most of that cash carry fund to shore up the general fund operating
Yes.
because of the increase in levies. So, and I think all of that was going to be swept into that.
Correct, but that just seems more appropriate from a policy point of view as opposed to taking funds out of the operating reserve of the parks. However, like I said, if the council wishes to do it all out of park dedication, it makes it all a moot point. I just wanted to make that point for whatever benefit there is out there for that.
No, I agree with that.
Well, I think you're right from a policy standpoint. It makes more sense. We will have to find that money somewhere else for the other.
Right. presuming, depending on how this goes,
Depending on how it goes.
what we do with the park dedication. I do want to provide an opportunity for comments from members of the public, so we'll open it up if there is anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this request this evening, which is to once again approve the contract. Well, I still have the sustainability thing open here. Approve the contract with
New look.
New Look Construction for the improvements at Rosebrook Park, and then to provide guidance on the use of the funding for it. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this proposal this evening? Does not appear to be the case. I will close the opportunity for public comment. Move to council consideration. Do we have a motion or motions in relation to the request this
I
evening?
would move that we approve the New Look contract. And then I would move to take the
Second.
funding from park dedication.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Schroeder to approve New Look and take the funding from park dedication. Is there a second to that motion?
I'd second that.
All right, it's been seconded by Councilmember Bauer. Discussion of the motion, as the maker of the motion, Councilmember Schroeder.
Yeah, I just, again, since the park, we have a large balance in the park dedication, 2 million, and taking 131, it seems to be that's what it's there for, is to supplement these projects to make them from good to great, like Matt talked about. And since it's so restricted, this is a really good, this is exactly what we want to use it for. And I think the contract makes sense, that they're low bid, and it sounds like they're very capable.
All right, thank you. Additional discussion as the seconder, Councilmember Bauer.
Nothing to add, just in support of everything previously stated.
All right, other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That passes unanimously. That funding is approved, and the project is awarded.
Thank you.
All right, thank you again, Mr. Johnson, and everybody who's been involved in this project throughout. And a special thanks to the members of the neighborhood who have been very active in participating. That was a neighborhood I remember going to Night to Unite block parties on a few years ago, and there was a lot of interest in Rosebrook Park at that time, so it's good to see that we've been able to connect the dots with that. All right, that then brings us to our fourth business item this evening, which is to consider making an appointment of a Roseville resident to Falcon Heights' Les Bolstead Golf Course Redevelopment Community Advisory Committee, the acronym for which we're still working on. We'll turn it over to Mr. Trudgeon to introduce this item.
We'll let Falcon Heights figure that out.
Yeah.
So, as mentioned, this is an opportunity for the city council to appoint a Roseville resident to the Community Advisory Committee. The city of Falcon Heights has asked us to bring forward a name. As we discussed at the last meeting, we did send out postcards to the immediate area, and happy to report we received 21 as of the deadline last night of applications. So a lot for you to all go through, and as I read through them, a lot of qualified, interested persons, so I imagine the selection was very hard. We did ask for the council to bring forward 2 names out of that great group of folks to bring forward for consideration. So on the screen here is the tally of all those, of all of you with your top 2. And you can see for yourself there's a wide variety of names, but there was one person that did receive 3 votes of confidence. I don't know if you want to call it that, but of interest. So I'll turn it over to you folks to have a discussion on who would you like to appoint.
All right, thank you. First of all, are there any questions from the council for staff? All right. Does anyone on the council wish to make a motion?
Motion to approve Julie Grape.
All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Strawn, seconded by Councilmember Groff to make that appointment of Ms. Grape. Based on the information, the tally discussion on that motion, Councilmember Strawn.
Ms. Grape also rated high on mine, didn't make the top 2, but was very high to that top. So I think that's a rare agreement with that many people that we all saw that same. So I wish them well, and it's going to be an interesting process. We look forward to hearing from them.
All right, as the seconder, Councilmember Groff.
Well, as you know, I did put her name forward last meeting, and the reason I did is because I do know Julie Grape, and she's good at asking questions and getting information and getting that back to the community. She's done that on the Roseville Library Board and other places, so that was why it got a little harder when I read through all these other applications, because there are many, many people who could serve in this role. So it's kind of like we have to choose someone, and that's why I'm supporting Julie Gray.
All right, other discussion on the motion? Yeah, I would just add that I think of the 21 applicants we had, which we thank everybody in that relatively small neighborhood for the level of interest we received on short notice. Of the 21, I think my particular 4-factor rubric that I used, the range of scores was between 20 and 32 amongst all of them, and so my top 3 or 4 were within just a few points of each other in that basis. So I think we had a lot of great people to choose from. We always just have such a wealth of interest in the community and serving in these types of roles. So it's great to see that. But I concur with the recommendation that was one of my top choices that didn't make the top 2. With that, if there's no other discussion, we have the motion before us to appoint Ms. Grape once again. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. That appointment is made.
I did have 3 more calls today.
All right. and I do appreciate the council's indulgence in not just sort of going ahead with an appointment at our last meeting based on the limited information we had. I hope that people appreciate the opportunity that they had to be a part of it. With that, then, that brings us to our added agenda item this evening, which is item 7E, and that is to potentially consider making an appointment to fill a recent vacancy in the Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Trudgeon to bring this item before the council.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, thank you for adding, first of all, this to the agenda. It seems to be efficient the use of our time. We learned late last week that there was a resignation on the Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission. And given the fact that you all just went through interviews in February of lots of folks that were interested in PWET, might be a good time to quickly appoint somebody. Otherwise, we'd wait till September, so they go half the year without another vacancy filled. So tonight, I'm bringing forward for your consideration on if you'd want to make an appointment tonight. What I have displayed is the tally list from that we used in the first meeting in March. For all of you to help make decisions, you ended up appointing Luke Sandstrom to the PWET. There are 2 other folks from the tally that received 2 votes, Rose Lindsay, who was appointed to the Planning Commission, and Charles Tedder. So that's just information for you to consider as you discuss if you want to make the appointment tonight and who it would be.
Oh,
And I would just note, in addition to that, if you look at the bottom of the screen there was Ms. Blake, who got 2 tallies on the Planning Commission, who was also interested as a second choice in the Public Works, Environment, and Transportation. So we have at least a couple of different options to potentially consider.
you also have to take into the PWAT chair pick Charles Tedder.
Noted, yes.
Yes. So that, I'd almost want to put that as in one of the tallies.
Well, we don't tally the chairs,
I
though, do
know,
we?
but it's
Yeah,
always good to
it's
take it
it's
into
food for thought,
consideration.
yes, exactly. I think actually our planning chair also picked Mr. Tedder for the Planning Commission as one of their 18 choices.
I would move to appoint Charles Tedder.
Second.
And to be clear, this would be for essentially almost a full term,
Yeah,
because we had
this one
just
meeting. Yep.
reappointed the person who resigned
Yep.
to another full term for 3 years.
Yeah, and PWET hasn't met for April yet, so
Yep.
All
won't
right.
miss any meetings.
So it was moved by Councilmember Schroeder, seconded by Councilmember Strawn to appoint Mr. Tedder. All right, discussion on the motion as the maker, Councilmember Schroeder.
It makes sense just from the tally standpoint, so.
I agree.
Councilmember Strawn. All right, other discussion? I will just make an argument, a case for Ms. Blake. I would love to find her an opportunity
I
to
would too.
participate because I had a great conversation with her during the interview process. And I know she wasn't able to attend the in-person interviews here, but once again, we'll just have to make sure and encourage her to participate in the process the next time around. But that being said, I have no problem with this motion and support it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed? That passes unanimously. That appointment is made. And I would say this is a good timing because of the fact we have our new commissioner training
Yes.
on Wednesday evening,
Oh my gosh.
presuming that this individual
even get it in their calendar.
can make it happen. Right. But certainly
They
we'll
have to put their lives on hold
we'll
on these commissions.
we'll endeavor to accommodate as needed, I'm sure. All right, that brings us to the end of our business items this evening. We do have 2 sets of city council minutes, one from our March 16th meeting and one from our March 23rd meeting, and I didn't check to see if we had any absences, but we may have.
I was absent.
So
on
we
this.
should take those up as separate motions. Does anyone want to move the March 16th minutes unless there's any changes or corrections?
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder to approve the March 16th minutes. Discussion on that motion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed? Abstentions? All right, that passes 5-0. And then we have the March 23rd council minutes as presented.
I'll move that.
Second.
All right, it's moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Bauer. Any further changes or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye opposed? Abstentions?
Aye. Yes.
Councilmember
Abstain.
Strawn abstains. It passes 4-0 with Councilmember Strawn abstaining due to her absence from that meeting. All right, that then brings us to the consent agenda. No items have been removed. Mr. Trudgeon, would you go through the consent items for our consideration this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Agenda item 10A approves payments in the amount of $722,076.83. Agenda item 10B approves temporary gambling permits to the Parkview Center School PTSA for a raffle on May 15th and to the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 49 for a raffle on July 20th. It also approves a temporary liquor license to the Rotary Club of Roseville for the Taste of Rose Fest event on June 25th, and a consumption and display permit to Color Me Mine Roseville at 2395 Fairview Avenue to allow customers to bring in their own wine during pottery painting studio time. Agenda item 10C approves expenditures to enter into the 2026 motor fuel contract. I would note that we locked that in beginning of February, so fortunately, given what's happening in the world, that won't affect us at least this year. Upgrades to the fire station alerting system, the replacement purchase of a mower for the Parks and Recreation Department, the replacement of a 33-year-old garage door for the building storing the Oval Zamboni, and replacement netting for the infield of the Oval. Item 10G approves the final payment for the 2025 pavement management project to North Valley Incorporated in the amount of $78,028.81. Item 10E approves the renewal of a short-term rental license for 419 Judith Avenue. Item 10F approves applying for the Brine Memorial Justice Assistance Grant in the amount of $14,255 to purchase life-saving and safety equipment for the police department's new rescue Sprinter van. And the last item, 10G, approves entering into an amended joint powers agreement with the Minnesota BCA regarding the Violent Crime Reduction Unit to reflect minor adjustments relating to the administration of the grant. As the City Council will recall, there is a Roseville Police Detective assigned to the Violent Crime Reduction Unit under the joint powers agreement. The state of Minnesota covers the entire salary and cost for our detective. And that is the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. Is there a motion on the consent items?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bauer, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder. Discussion on that motion? And I would just note that I think on the over 10,000 items, many of those were under budget, which is appreciated as always. And it's nice to note that, once again, that change to the BCA agreement doesn't change the terms under which they do pay for that detective, so that's helpful. With that, we've got the motion before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed? That passes unanimously. Those items are approved or accepted. That then brings us to our future agenda review. Mr. Trudgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, a couple nights, Wednesday night, we will have ethics training in this room. The actual event starts at 6:30. We do new commissioner training for all the new appointees at 5:30, and also chair and vice chair training also at 5:30. We'll have a meal here, so about 6 o'clock or so. Those things should be close to wrapping up, so get here a little bit early to grab a bite to eat, but the training will be done by City Attorney Kearney. And I guess we haven't talked specifically, but an hour or less probably as far as the training.
And as usual, the mayor will be the cautionary tale, right?
You do it so well.
All right.
So that is the 8th. On the 13th, which is next Monday, we have the need for a special EDA meeting. We have some agreements with the Hyde Development out on the Pick property and to accept a grant. We also, it's not on this slide, I'm sorry, I didn't update it. We do think we are able to bring forward the rental assistance program with, oh boy, I'm blanking on the on the nonprofit.
Neighborhood house?
Neighborhood House, yes. We were able to bring them back into the conversation after, if you remember last time we were struggling. So I'll bring that back for your consideration to do that. Now, as far as the regular council meeting, we don't have a lot of business items. We have 4 proclamations and a consent agenda. So if you're okay with that, because we still need to meet as the EDA, and that could take a little bit of time, we can then just convene into a city council meeting and do it pretty quick. But make sure we get those proclamations in the consent agenda. Certainly, if something pops up in the meantime, we'll add it, but we'll go ahead with that. On the 20th, we'll have the work session. We'll be over the Roseville Fire Station from 4 to 7 p.m. Talk about the budget drivers and about the strategic plan, and just really start the conversations. This is much earlier than we've done it in the past, and we want to just provide some landscape that we're seeing in the budget trends, and just so we're aware as we go into it. We have a long way to go before we get to cross the finish line, so this will be that first look at it. And then just a reminder, on the 22nd, that Wednesday morning, we have a Roseville Business Connect at 8 a.m., and we'll be talking about commercial and residential real estate trends in Roseville and Minnesota. And that's what I have for future agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. Are there, we're all just adjusting our calendars here for
Yes, for
that
the
meeting on
fire
the
station.
20th, yes.
At the right place.
Questions for Mr. Trudgeon on the future agenda? Any councilmember initiated items for future agendas or communications or announcements from council members? Councilmember Groff.
Remember, NYFS Leadership Luncheon, May 6th, 11:30 at the Vadnais Heights Community Center, 655 County Road F. And
And-
come and support youth and counseling for them and their families.
I believe registration closes today for that, if I'm not mistaken.
Does, if you
More or
contact
less.
us, we can probably
Contact
squeeze it in
Wayne.
sooner.
Wayne can make it happen.
Yeah.
All right.
Just don't wait till last week.
Right,
That's
yeah.
fair to the
That's again
caterer.
on May 6th?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Other communications announcements for council members, or from council members? All right, the only other, wait a second. Good thing I flipped over my agenda.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of a unusual item. We don't always have these, but this evening we have an opportunity to have a closed session. By state law, city councils have to conduct their business in public and available and accessible to the public and let people know what we're doing. We do have certain exceptions under Minnesota State Statutes 13D.05 Subdivision 3C. In this case, to consider a potential offer for the purchase or sale of real property. In this case, we are talking about property located at 1145 Woodhill Drive in Roseville, identified as property ID 0329 234 40033. So it would be appropriate, once I get done saying what I have to say, for the council to make a motion to move to adjourn the open session for a short time, move to a closed session for that purpose under state statute, and then we'll subsequently have motions to reopen and close out our meeting once again in open session. However, for members of the public, once we take this action to move to closed session, that will be the end of the recorded portion of the meeting, and the future actions to close out the meeting will be taken off camera, just so folks know. With that, unless the attorney has any additions or corrections to my information about the action we're about to take here, it would be appropriate then for the council to have a motion to adjourn the open session to move to closed session for the purposes outlined in the introduction.
Second.
All right, moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. So we'll be moving to closed session. Once again, the on-camera portion of the meeting will be ending at this time at approximately 7:32 p.m. Thank you, everyone.